Today I'm going to show you how to make a bowl without a chuck. When most people get into wood turning, they don't tend to buy a chuck, so I wanted to see whether I could turn a bowl without a chuck. Now, Louis Wood asked if it was possible if I could do this, so I'm going to see if I can. So I'm just cutting out the piece of American cherry into the 3 blanks for the bowl. If you have a bandsaw, you can do it much quicker, but I don't, so I just used a handsaw and a bit of force to do this. So now we're gluing the bowl together. I just used my standard Gorilla Glue and then clamped it up using some F-clamps. And then I left this for about 24 hours to dry up. I then cut up a square piece of wood which would make the part that I would screw the faceplate to. To save time when turning the bowl, I decided to cut the edges off. This just helps the bowl turn quicker as you don't have to then turn it quite so much to get it round. Once you've cut the corners off, it should form an octagonal sort of shape. I then glued the piece of wood which I would mount the faceplate to. I then left this to dry for about 24 hours as well, just to make sure the glue had fully cured. Okay, so I'm just unscrewing the faceplate from the lathe, and then we're going to screw this onto my blank. I used 30mm screws to screw the faceplate to the bowl blank. Now make sure these screws are screwed in really tight because this is what will hold your blank to the lathe. Now we've got to the exciting part of the project. I'm screwing the faceplate back onto the lathe and then setting it up for turning. I put the belt speed to its lowest setting just to make sure that I didn't have any major chip outs. Ideally I would have used a rough and gouge to turn this, but my rough and gouge isn't very good, so I just used my round scraper to help get this round. It works, it's just a bit slower. When turning the bowl from the square stock to the round stock, it's really important you have a really sharp tool, because if you don't, you might get chip outs and it's also more dangerous to use a blunt tool. If you have any suggestions for what to do with loads of sawdust, I'd really appreciate if you could put those in the comments section, because I have so many bits of sawdust left over from all these lathe projects. As you can see, the bowl has been turned round, so now I'm just going to start to shape this bowl profile, so I wanted it to converge to a point at the end. Shaping the bowl profile doesn't actually take very long, and this is one of the more exciting aspects of the project, as you really start to see the shape. If your tool rest would allow it, I would suggest turning a bit of square wood that we used to screw to the faceplate, just because it will help later on when you're parting it off the lathe, or if you did what I do, saw it off. So now we've come to the most challenging aspect of this project, which is hollowing out the interior of the bowl. Now I used a round scraper to do this. You should use a bowl gouge, but I don't have a bowl gouge, and a rough and gouge would also be preferable. But I had a very thin spindle gouge that I also used to help me with this. First thing I would recommend doing is drilling a hole into the bowl. I used a 10mm drill bit for this. This just helps you to really open up the bowl and just get that interior profile. So I'm just repeating this same process, just taking nice shallow cuts and passes just to start hollowing this out. Now obviously you could do this far quicker if you had a bowl gouge, but as I've already discussed, I don't. So just take your time and be sensible with this. You could of course use a large forcener bit if you didn't want to have to do so many passes with the lathe tools, but I enjoy this process and I think it's a good learning experience too. As you just saw, I always take the bowl off the lathe every so often just to have a look at it, have a feel of it, see if I like it, and see what might need changing. As I've said before in a couple of my videos, if you have any project suggestions, like Louis Wood had this project suggestion, leave them in the comments section or in the discussion tab feature. I started sanding the interior of the bowl at 120 grit and worked my way up to 180 grit, which was the finest grit of sandpaper I had. Also, if you don't know, I have an Instagram account at designermake.yt, so go and check that out if you want to see regular posts of what I'm up to. I wanted to apply a coat of Carna crystalline wax to the outside of the bowl. To do that, I needed to change the lathe speed to be on its highest speed setting. This just means I can get a really high sheen from the wax. After changing the belt speed, I then put the bowl blank back onto the lathe and checked it was all tight before turning it back on. When applying Carna crystalline wax, you don't need to use that much pressure, so I just gently pushed the wax stick into the bowl, and that gave it a really good gloss surface. And then I used a buffing cloth just to get that to a really high sheen. I apologise for the shaky camera here, but the lathe is at its highest speed and it does make a bit of vibrations on the workbench. I then applied a coat of food safe finish to the interior of the bowl. This means I can use it for food and it also looks really nice. Also, when I reach 100 subscribers, I'm planning on doing a 100 subscriber giveaway where I'll give away a keyring, and I will also make your project, your exact project that you've asked me to make. So the details for entering that will be posted when I reach 100 subscribers. So subscribe if you haven't already. It would be really useful if you could give me a bit of help in my videos. I'm interested in knowing what type of videos you guys prefer. Do you like seeing lathe videos? Do you like seeing box making? What kind of videos do you like seeing? Obviously I will do things that I need to make or projects that I want to do, but I'll also make things that you guys want to see as well. So I'm using my Excalibur tenon saw to just chop this bowl off. You could part this off if you've got the confidence, but I don't. And then I'm using my screwdriver to undo all these screws from the faceplate. As you saw, I'm going to be keeping hold of this bit that came off of the faceplate because I'm planning on using that in a future project. I'm now just applying some more food safe oil to the bottom of this bowl just to clean it up and make it look nice like the rest of the bowl. Make sure you apply plenty of food safe oil because this is what will take the beating when it's on the bottom of a surface, and so will the interior, so make sure you apply plenty of oil, and also don't drop the bowl. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it.